And we're live. Good morning, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Corin.
It's almost afternoon. It's right on the
Yeah.
edge.
Oh,
Is
yes.
12
But
noon afternoon or is it still morning?
well, I guess 12 noon is noon. It's not yet after noon.
Hmm.
So I guess we'll have to wait 60 seconds and I'll say that again.
Or you could say good noon.
Good noon. Yeah, I wonder.
Good noon. Anyway,
Top of the noon, top of the noon to you, sir.
top of the noon. we're really hitting the hard questions here on this show. I like it.
Indeed. And that's a wrap. Good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah.
40 seconds of pure gold.
Yeah,
Awesome.
there you go.
So what are we talking about today, Jeff?
Well, yeah. So last week, I think we sort of decided to make this a regular thing. Every Wednesday, we're just going to discuss some of the buyer criteria and buyer wish list that have sort of come in on email over the last week or so. So we're calling this "What Buyers Want Wednesday." So if you have a business, this might be of interest to you to sort of see or hear what people are actually looking for, where investors are looking to park their money these days. So yeah, so we're calling it What Buyers Want Wednesday.
And just to make things interesting, someone's coming in. Is that right? Why? Anyway, there's going to be someone walking around my house in a minute. That's awesome.
Awesome. Hopefully they're doing something exciting like putting in fiber optic internet or
right.
yeah. Those kind of people are allowed.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Awesome. So last week we were literally sharing this spreadsheet we work off for this. So do you think that'd be helpful to do again, or should we just talk about them? I'm kind of happy either way.
Yeah, yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I think it might provide some clarity, but I think this is it's pretty easy to sort of just talk about these one at a time.
Yeah.
So yeah, without I guess yeah, people can either look at our faces or they can look at a spreadsheet or a combination.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Well,
there we
we'll
go.
do a combination here. So I'll just pull this up and down like we did last week. So we're going to talk about this first one here. So do you want to run through what we're seeing on this tab?
Yes, sure. So obviously they're looking for a pretty healthy net margin at 30% or more. Yeah, beauty, home goods, sports, music. Yeah, okay. But yeah, interestingly though, for a majority acquisition with a seller retaining a minority piece of their business. And I know we've talked about this before on our deal structure piece, where that could be good or bad. It really depends. If you think about having a business that you've owned and operated for a number of years, and now you're going to remain working in a business that you have no say over, you've got no control and no say over. So that some people might view that as a negative. Some people would be like, great, those chips are off the table. That's a big stress relief and some security moving forward. So that's interesting. I don't know how often we see buyers explicitly saying that that's what they're interested in. I know they'll entertain that. Obviously, if it's on the table, they'll negotiate and they'll talk about that as a possibility. But how common is that for buyers to specifically state, "I'm looking to purchase majority and need the person to stay in the business"?
So yeah, this is interesting, this one. So they're looking for SDE ranges of $500,000 to $1 million. That was off the screen. I tried to enlarge this a little bit so you can see a little bit more. So the way I'd look at this criteria, and it's kind of interesting how you can read between the lines like this. So I find it interesting. Let's see if everyone else does. So a couple of pieces of this, this will answer your question. So that's one piece of this specific criteria is majority. Now, majority investment, majority ownership is quite common to be asked for. The owner to retain minority doesn't necessarily mean it's operational. So what they're doing here is they're reducing their risk by you, the seller, retaining some equity in the business after the sale. It's quite common for, say, a private equity structure. In the deal structure videos, we went through the private equity model pretty concisely. So you can go back and watch that in the unit section of our Facebook group. So yeah, it's quite common. It's not uncommon for that to be a operational role, like you were talking about. If someone wants to buy the bulk of the business, so they have ultimate say, that have you continue to run it or your team continue to run it is quite common as well. But yeah, what they're saying is they want control. So if they're going to invest, they want control. And at these levels, that's pretty common. Minority investing or growth capital investing for a minority stake really kicks in well above this range, in the 5 to 10 million plus zone.
But in this range, do you think they're asking for that because they need that person to stay in the business, because they are, like you've described before, they're professional investors? They don't necessarily know how to run an e-commerce business and don't necessarily have an experienced corporate team in place to take it over. So they kind of need you to stay on there to ensure the success of the business. Is that possibly what's happening here?
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be they don't quite understand what that means, or that could literally be what they're meaning. They could mean you maintain minority and keep running the business. It's really a question mark for that buyer. And if you're in a deal and someone's saying as part of their offer, we need to be majority owner, that is the next question. Who's going to operate the business? Do you need us to operate the business still moving forward? Because that changes the structure. If you're just holding equity and they're going to run the business after, then you need another set of questions to figure out who they are, what their experience is, etc. Which leads back to the category piece here. They're actually looking pretty broad here. They want beauty, home goods, sports, or music. Now, they're completely unrelated categories, right? So this could mean that either they have a diverse portfolio already, so maybe they have portfolio companies that they're looking at, or they're looking for their first acquisition, and these are the categories they're interested in.
Got it. And do you think that minority piece, just to sort of finish off on that, just something I'm curious about too, is how with a buyer like this who is specifically requesting this in their criteria up front, would that be a negotiating piece to say, like, for the seller to say, okay, but for a year or for 2 years, or to put, there needs to be a time limit put on that, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, everything's negotiable. So we now know, just from this criteria, we know a bit about this buyer and what's important to them. So we'd negotiate, if we like them as a buyer, we'd negotiate to the factors that are important to them, but also get our clients the best result for them within this framework. That's a tip for deal making, is figure out what the important things are to the opposing party, and then use that same framework to mold what you need out of the deal and come together. It's smart to go back in the same language, in the same framework that the buyer is presenting, if it's interesting and if they're an interesting buyer. But yeah, all negotiable.
Cool. All right. So moving on here, we've got our next criteria was 3 to 500,000 in SDE, looking at a 20 to 25% net margin across a number of categories here: home, kitchen, bed, bath, baby, personal care, non-consumable, fitness, kids, pets, and outdoors. So they are looking for around 3 times SDE for a total deal value of 500,000 to $1.5 million. And they would prefer SBA pre-qualification. So can you expand on that? I mean, obviously they're looking for lower than average net margin, typically, right? Yeah. And then we've got a pretty wide range of categories here. Does this tell you that this is probably their first acquisition?
Absolutely. And it's also interesting that the personal care has the disclaimer of non-consumables. So they don't want, they don't want consumables. So consumables are polarizing, not as much as adult or fashion or electronics. Let's say electronics and fashion are probably the most polarizing categories that you can have. What they're saying with consumables, this is another area that's polarizing, is some investors just don't want the risk of someone actually ingesting the products. So that's probably what they mean by non-consumable there, because consumable products are actually quite interesting, which leads to recurring purchase. But I believe what they're talking about here is more ingestible, and they don't want
more like
that liability.
Supplements and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, very wide, broad category here, and they're looking for a low SDE and a lower margin. So yes, I would say this person, this investor, is a newer buyer in the space. They've got their broad targets as far as these couple of categories is what we're interested in, and here's what we're looking at. And being an SBA buyer as well, not saying that means they're a newer buyer, but yes, if they're looking to use SBA debt, they're one of the 10 million other buyers that have loose criteria and just want to use SBA debt.
Right. All right, next down the list here. This one is, I sort of earmarked this one to be a little bit interesting here. Again, 300,000 to 500,000 in SDE. Again, also looking in a similar net profit margin of 20 to 25%, so slightly below average. But category, everything except seasonal. And they've given the example of fashion here. And then they move on to say low touch, no proprietary assembling or manufacturing. So yeah, so if there's no proprietary assembling and manufacturing, low touch, but across every category.
Yeah. So what they're saying is,
what do you take that to mean?
Yeah. So they're probably looking at a lot of different business models, meaning that maybe they're looking at actual retail locations as well, not just e-commerce. Because the low touch piece, it means they're wanting location independence. They're wanting to not have to assemble items to send them out to the consumer to fulfill the orders. Basically, they want it to be low touch or no touch. So typically, most FBA businesses are like this, and most e-commerce businesses are set up this way, where the factory does all the work, your 3PL handles the product. They're basically saying they don't want to do the work of putting the stuff together to send it out, which makes total sense because that eats into margin.
Yeah, so they don't want to be sourcing ingredients or sourcing different fabrics or sourcing whatever and doing all of that research and development. They just kind of want a widget that gets made and packaged and sent.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Which most of the clients we talk to that are thinking about selling would fit this. And then
who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, exactly. And then the seasonality with the fashion example, this who wouldn't want this? Exactly. Sorry, just delayed reaction there. All except seasonal, e.g. fashion. So like I was mentioning before, fashion is one of the most polarizing categories along with electronics and adult. Seasonality with fashion could also be trend related, which is actually worse than seasonality, because maybe you only get one season where that style is in fashion and then it's gone next season, right? Like there's another layer to seasonality. Seasonality in general, we've talked about this before, but a couple of things about seasonality is it's really hard to plan for heavy seasonality. So if you have 70, 80% of your revenue in Q4 or in December, let's say, so it's a really narrow window, maybe you're selling Christmas gifts or something like that. Planning for next year, it's kind of a set and pray approach. It's quite often that these categories will run out of inventory because it's really hard to plan for demand. It's easy to over order. And you've got a whole other year before you even know if your sales are going to happen. So if you're basing the deal off last year's numbers, but you still have 9 months to go until you actually see if anything's going to sell, it's scary. There's a lot of risk involved. So a heavy seasonality to your business can make it harder to sell and less attractive to buyers.
Got it. And we've talked about the time of year to sell that too. So
yes,
something to consider there. Okay,
for
cool.
sure.
So moving on down the line here, this next investor is looking for a bit of a smaller deal, looking at under 300,000 in SDE. They're looking for a lower profit margin in tools or auto accessories. Oh, did I skip one?
Yeah, we did.
I did. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Scratch that. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So under 300,000 in SDE, 25 to 30%. So slightly less, but right around average for their net profit margin. Beauty or supplements, and also looking for a beauty manufacturing facility. And they prefer to find a company that is struggling a bit with their marketing and cash flow, meaning that they've got those facilities in place already, I would imagine.
Yes.
And yeah, so beauty and supplements certainly hot right now. So I guess that they're looking for a business that's sort of probably like a one-man show who's reaching the end of their capabilities or whatever. How would you sort
Yeah.
of read into that?
And the manufacturing facility, this is kind of interesting. So either they have beauty products they're selling already or supplements, and they're thinking maybe we could acquire the supply chain and get our product costs down, or maybe they're thinking as a future play, if we have the facility, we like this category, then we could buy other brands and manufacture ourselves. Vertical integration is what this is called in M&A terms. So buying the supplier of your product to reduce costs. Also, there's also strategies to buy the supplier of your competitors and lock up supply of the product. Or this is particularly effective if there's a patent in place. You can lock that down and lock out other competitors from your category. So it can be an aggressive approach, a very effective approach. It can also be an opportunistic thing. They're thinking 2 steps ahead. They're thinking, well, we like this category. Let's buy a supplier and then have access and leverage to bring to the next deal, or they already have that existing. So this is, I've actually had conversations with large supplement sellers that are looking for this, and vice versa. Manufacturers that are existing that are looking for brands to acquire because their margin improves, right? Once they're actually selling the product themselves, they're producing it, so their margins are great, but then they also improve the margin of the business they're acquiring.
Mm-hmm. Right, and they're obviously highlighting their strengths.
Yes.
In marketing and cash flow control. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. But if someone's got 25 to 30% net margin, unless they're growing super fast, they're probably not going to have cash flow problems.
Yeah, right. It's
a bit of a wish list, this one.
Yeah, I mean, ask for.
Well, they all are.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure none of these people are assuming that the perfect business is sitting there, but if it ticks most boxes but not all, I mean, there's room for negotiation and a reason to have the conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. So now moving on to this lower value deal that under 300,000 in SDE. They're looking for less than 15% in net profit in tools or auto accessories specifically, and they're looking to invest less than $100,000.
Mm-hmm. So this person, this criteria tells me that this investor knows this space. So they're likely in auto parts already. So they know there's skinny margins. They're probably at their first acquisition or just starting out on the acquisition front. So maybe they could even have an auto shop, like an auto retailer, brick and mortar store. And they're saying, what if we bought a brand? We could put $100,000 into it, buy the brand, and then sell that through our store, pick up margin, pick up improvement that way. So yeah, they're very focused on this category, which is awesome. I like seeing that, and they're also realistic on the margin. It may also mean they're looking to improve margin, which is why they're looking for a lower margin. That's a common acquisition strategy to look for a low margin business and improve the margin.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that very often come through where people are looking for a low value deal. usually their wish list is a bit higher, is it not? Like,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
that's quite nice to see it pretty narrow there. So,
yeah, yeah. But that should be encouraging too for lots of FBA owners, that you don't always have to reach this huge plateau to find a buyer.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on down here. Next one, again, under 300,000 in SDE, looking back towards average at 25 to 30% net profit margin. And they're looking for baby, pets, kitchenware, home, fitness, or outdoor. Narrow assortment, under 500 reviews, and 4.5 or more than, and 4.5 star rating. So they're very specific here in these.
So in their criteria. So what does this tell us about this buyer? Well, the specifics of the criteria: narrow assortment means less SKUs. So they want a targeted product range is what they're looking for. They're looking for over 500 reviews. So they want some review moat around the products themselves, and over 4.5 stars, they're looking for quality products, right? Which is very common when someone starts looking into acquiring, say, an Amazon-based business. These are the criteria that often comes through. And the fact that they want such a wide category of business, again, says maybe this is the first acquisition, or they have some leverage in one of these categories, or they just like them in general. So really they're probably looking to see as many deals as they can, which is why the category range there is so broad. But they have those qualifiers with Amazon specific things that obviously they've done some research here. But I'd say probably first acquisition here again.
All right. And yeah, it's interesting that they want some padding there with the reviews and the ratings.
Yeah.
All right, next one, again, under 300,000 in SDE, looking a bit lower in the margin at 15 to 20%, but looking in toys, gifts, and home. They want 3 to 20 SKUs. They haven't been so specific as the previous person, but they do want some good reviews and some differentiation. Assuming that means they want some defensibility in the product, something unique about them.
Yes. Yeah, so that's quite common too. Back in the day, 4 or 5 years ago, it was quite common to just source something on Alibaba, maybe or maybe not, slap your label on it and sell it. So what they're saying is they want something with a little bit more to it than just I can go find this product. They do want a narrow assortment. Again, they want few SKUs, which is good. Good reviews, obviously. The toys, gifts, and home, the first two are quite seasonal. Like we just talked about. So maybe they have some leverage in the gift or toy space. Home is typically a year-round product. You will see, in most categories, you'll see an uptick in Q4. But it's interesting that they're leaning more towards seasonal type products. So it'd be interesting to talk to them and figure out why that is, what leverage or experience they have in that space where they feel like they have some advantage. So they may, for example, already be selling in those categories. They may have existing products, they may have distribution or supply in those categories.
Yeah, I was wondering if they had other categories in different seasons where this might sort of even out their year.
Yeah, which is quite a common strategy to, if you have summer products, buy winter products or build a winter product assortment to try and level out the income throughout the year. Yeah, that's a good strategy. And if you're acquiring, why not acquire your weaknesses to become strengths?
Yeah, there you go. Cool. All right. Next one, last one here, under 300,000, but looking for 30 plus. So above average net profit margin. Amazon FBA business, high preference if it sells in categories like household and office. But he's gone into he or she, I apologize again, gone into some pretty good detail here to serve the purpose as an off-brand replacement accessory to a leading brand's product. or if it's innovative, has a patent, I prefer to buy a business with few SKUs composing high revenue versus lots of SKUs. So yeah, but then he also had this tag, he or she, sorry, I keep doing that. I don't mean anything by that, I promise. If it contains a SKU that has an Amazon bestseller badge that's been held for 6 months or more, then he's all over it.
Yeah, this is interesting. So it's quite a lot.
The very definition of a wish list, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's yeah, they don't want much, basically, which is fine. So yeah, where do we start with this one? House. I was trying to say household and office in one go there. So household and office categories. So they're pretty narrow in what they're looking for, what they like. This may mean they already have some products, some leverage in that space, potentially, or they just really like that category.
Yeah, but not seasonal, like you mentioned before.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it depends. It depends on the category. We have seen some pretty seasonal office and home type products before. It depends. They may also, and this is a bit left field, they may also have an audience in this space. So maybe they have an affiliate site that was just hit with the Amazon update and in commission halving, and they're saying, well, why don't we just buy some of these products because we already have the audience, we have the reach to improve sales. So it'd be interesting to see what leverage they have again in this space. So they've actually got off serves. I'm struggling to read this. Here we go. Off-brand replacement accessory to a leading brand's product. Okay, so they're wanting to piggyback on a larger brand. So some of the big household names, they're wanting accessory products to that because they're thinking maybe that'll give them some uplift, being an accessory or an add-on product instead of competing directly.
Yeah,
they'd want it to be innovative. E.g. has a patent. Well, that's can be innovative for sure. So they're wanting unique proprietary type products. Few SKUs, again, this is a recurring one. High revenue per SKU versus a lot of SKUs. Amazon bestseller, that's quite common, and 6 months of the Amazon bestseller is quite interesting. So it's showing some longevity and history there. So that's what they're asking for. So these are the type of things that we see from buyers over and over again, and you'll see these each week. There's definitely a common theme coming through a lot of these in low SKUs, products being differentiated, etc. Is there anything else that you saw as a common theme today, Jeff?
Not today. It's more of looking at considering what they don't want, as opposed to the categories that they're specifically looking for. I mean, if you sort of read into that a bit more and be like, here's what they're not wanting right now. But yeah, I mean, it's a tricky marketplace right now where like health and supplements and those kind of things are high on people's wish lists, but that's not going to stay the same. The more of these we do, we'll see some shifts, I think, in what buyers are looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing we're seeing on actual deals that we're marketing is buyers are wanting to see longer history. So they're wanting to see 3 years of financials, for example, partially because they want to see a bit more history on the current trend, especially if things are up or down. Like, what does that normally look like? And what does it look like now? And what's potentially going to happen in the future because of the uncertainty? Of course, depends on the category. But the longer the history gives you more confidence in modeling the future.
Yeah, and some uniqueness too. That was a fairly common thread throughout here too, is that they're looking for something unique. They're not looking for people who are selling scissors and coffee mugs. They want something about those things to, well, I mean, maybe, but it looks like something about them to be different. You know, is the shape different? Are they longer or whatever? I mean, maybe there's a patent, maybe there isn't, but there's got to be something unique about the product that they're looking for to sort of build some defense around.
Exactly.
So,
and the patent itself, and this is kind of an interesting one. The patent itself doesn't necessarily mean it's terribly unique. You can get design patents fairly easily. We've seen everyday products be patented before, and if you put them next to the other selling items, maybe there's a bit of a difference, maybe there's not. It's not like you're not Dyson and you're creating a new vacuum cleaner system necessarily. So patent is kind of a relative thing, right? So the more unique and different, the more you stand out, the more defensible that IP is around your products, the more interest you'll have and the more value there'll be in deals. So we've been having these conversations this week with different buyers too, specifically around IP. Buyers that come in that have experience buying businesses, so private equity groups with a lot of brand product experience, looking for IP and kind of getting comfortable with how, say, an Amazon brand defends their IP and what they have versus a more traditional large scale brand. So that's been interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else to add there, mate, on these ones?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's just an interesting mix compared to last week. But yeah, we're kind of right at our half-hour mark. So hopefully, hopefully some e-com sellers and FBA sellers out there get some value or some, out of looking at exactly what buyers are telling us that they're looking for specifically. Just, information to sort of keep in the back of your mind a little bit. Maybe you'll see something that says that's my, like I fit that bill. So certainly get in touch. Yeah.
If you do, as we're doing these, if you say, hey, that's my business, or I could be a fit for that, definitely email us at sales@thefbabroker.com. And then also, if you want to have a chat with Jeff, you can reach out there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sales at the FBA broker comes straight to me, so I'll be able to sort of see what direct it from there. But if you want to have a conversation about selling the business or how you can improve the business or plan for an exit a year or 2 years down the road, whatever it may be, just reach out, sales@thefbabroker.com. We'll get on a call and we'll go from there. So looking forward to chatting.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Jeff. I hope everyone's finding these interesting. Feel free to drop us any comments or questions about these ones, but we'll be doing this every Wednesday and sharing with you live what buyers are looking for. And it's fun to talk about this stuff as it comes in.
Yeah. A little bit of a different angle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right, mate. Well, I'll see you again tomorrow, and thanks everyone for watching.
Sounds good. Bye for now.